Welcome back to Easy as Pie with Mr. Carpenter. I'm Mr. Carpenter, and today we're going to have a bit of a throwback to our friend, the conversions. Unfortunately, they don't go away, and they're just a useful tool that you're going to be using in your life a lot, whether you know it or not, whether you use this method or not. You're going to be converting off of units because units make the world go round. So in this case, how many inches are in 5 miles? That's our first example, and in this example, we're going to make use of our equivalencies, right? Knowing which units are equal to each other. These will always be given to us for the purposes of Algebra 1. So I would give you the fact that there are 12 inches in 1 foot. And I would give you the fact that there are 5,280 feet in 1 mile. Right? So I'm going to start with my starting point. And my starting point is 5 miles. And I'm going to do myself a small favor, and I'm going to divide it by 1. Right? Dividing by 1 doesn't change what my number is, right? Because 5 divided by 1 is still going to be 5. But it gives me that extra visual aids where now I can see the 5 and the miles on the top of the fraction, because we're going to be using canceling out as part of our method here, and being able to see the miles on top of the fraction helps me to avoid mistakes later down the road. This is not a necessary step, but I find for a lot of students it's a helpful step. And I'm going to multiply, and I'm going to multiply by another fraction, right? And this fraction will consist of one of my two proportions, right? I need to convert miles to feet, and then I need to convert from feet to inches, right? Because I don't have a conversion method from inches to miles, right? I instead have feet to miles, and then I have feet to inches. So I kind of have to take the scenic route to this answer. So I know that there's 5,280 feet in 1 mile. The question, and this is the $1 million question, is I can write it as 5,280 feet over 1 mile, or I can flip it around and write 1 mile over 5,280 feet. So the question is, which one do I go with? The answer is I'm going to go with whichever one allows my miles to cancel out. And they cancel out if I have a unit of miles on the top of a fraction and I have a unit of miles on the bottom of a fraction. So watch what happens when I write 5,280 feet in over 1 mile. There's a miles on top, and there's a miles on bottom. So those will cancel each other out, and my fraction is now converted into feet. I make another proportion because I need to go from feet to inches. Same thing. I can either go 1 foot is 12 inches, or I can flip-flop them and say 12 inches over 1 foot, which is the answer. Well, it's going to be whichever one allows the feet unit to cancel out. And that would be done by putting 12 inches on top over 1 foot on bottom. Once again, I have a foot unit on top and I have a foot unit on bottom. So those will cancel. And now the only unit left is inches. So I started with 5 miles. I converted it to feet. So I started at miles, converted it to feet here, and then I converted it to inches here, right? And now I can put this into my graphing calculator, right? If the number is on the top of the fraction, I'm going to be multiplying by that number. And when I say the number, I'm, of course, talking about the number that's not the number 1, right? So the 5,280 feet over 1 mile, I'm talking about 5,280. So since both of these numbers are on top of the fractions, I'm going to be multiplying by them. So I'll go into my calculator. I have my Desmos one. So 5 miles multiplied by 5,280 feet, 280, times 12 inches. And there are 316,800 inches in 5 miles. Boom. And now we're done. So let's move on to a different one. One that might be a little more complicated because it involves converting two different units kind of at the same time. Let's say you are driving 50 miles per hour. What would that be in feet per second? Notice that in the other one, it was just miles to inches. This one, it's miles per hour to feet per second. So we're working with two different units here. But my starting point will be the same, right? I have 50 miles in 1 hour. And I'm going to multiply that by a proportion. Once again, I would give you these proportions. 5,280 feet in 1 mile. And 3,600 seconds in 1 hour. Okay. So, which way do I write it? Do I write 5,280 feet in 1 mile? Or do I flip-flop and do 1 mile over 5,280 feet? Once again, I'm doing the option that allows me to have a mile on top and a mile on bottom so that they cancel out. And that's exactly what I have here. So now I'm in feet per hour. I need to be in feet per second. So I need one more proportion here. Which one do I do? I'm going to do 1 hour is equal to 3,600 seconds. Why? Because I have an hour on bottom and I have an hour on top. And now those are going to cancel out. Notice that the only ones left are feet per second. So I am fully converted and I am ready to multiply. So I start, make a new one, 50 miles times 5,280 feet. And since this 3,600 is at the bottom of its fraction, that means I'm going to divide by that number. That's a mistake people make where they tend to just multiply by everything, right? We're going to divide by 3,600. Not like that, though. Let's get that number. So 264,000 divide by 3,600. Nope. Nopers. 73.333 repeating. We'll round that to a nice clean 73.3. I'll leave it. 73.3. And that is in feet per second. And that is just a brief overview of our conversions. Thank you for watching. If you have any other questions, let me know.